Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and also good evening for our Southeast Asian friends, and good morning to our European friends. I welcome you all for today's e-conference on India's Pharma Industry Outlook 2021, organized by Indian Chemical News. In short, we call it ICN, a credible knowledge and information-led media platform in the chemical industry. Myself, Praveen Prashant, editor Indian Chemical News, will be your host and moderator for today's conference. Today, we have an eminent set of panelists from pharma industry ecosystem. Next slide. In 2020, we organized 10 e-conferences, and this year in January, February, March, we have announced 4 e-conferences. The first one was on 9th February, which we did on India's Chemical Industry Outlook 2021. And the video and the report is available on our website, indianchemicalnews.com. On 12th February, that is today, we are focusing on India's Pharma Industry Outlook 2021. On 19th, we are focusing on India's Petrochemical Outlook 2021. And on 10th March, we are focusing on digitization, which is the digital lesson from 2020, preparing for the new normal. Next slide. Indian Chemical News shall be releasing a compendium on exploring new horizons for growth during India Chem 2021, titled Chemical Industry Outlook 2021, an exclusive collection of premium content for CXO level people. We are also the official media partner for India Chem 2021. Just giving you a brief about our compendium that we are coming out with. It's an exclusive collection of content for CXOs level people. The verticals that we are writing on is pharma, chemical, petrochemical, gas, and hydrogen. The content is focused on sector overview, CXO's perspective, and CXO's interview. Emerging trends is another section that we will have, which will focus on innovation, supply chain management, green technologies, startups, disaster management, R&D, and digitalization. Next slide. The key discussion points that we would be talking today is on pharma industry global and India outlook in 2021, redefining India's pharma target for 2021, role of COVID-19 vaccine in India's growth story, identifying growth drivers across key pharma segments in 2021, manufacturing pharmaceutical ingredients domestically by 2023, opportunities generated through production-linked incentives in 2021, R&D push for novel molecules, academia and industry collaboration, and access to next generation technologies across value chain. The speakers that we have for today is Mr. Yogin Majmudar, with very senior people from the industry, CMD Bakul Group. He is also the past president of IDMA, and he is the chairman of the Bulk Drug Committee, IDMA. Raghuveer Kinney, he is the former ED of Pharmexcel and has worked with the Commerce Ministry. This comes under the Commerce Ministry, and he has done a good job there. Dr. Komu Nagaya, he is the chief scientist and head of CSIR IICT Hyderabad. And he is also focused on, Ayush and others. Mr. N. Narayanan Suresh, he is the chief operating officer of ABLE. We had a chance to work together in cyber media when he was editor Biotech. Govind K. Jaju, partner Singora Consulting. Mr. Avinav Dandia, CEO Sphera Pharma. Mr. Samir Rawal, founder director Magnizent Pharma Chem. Mr. Srini Kunduru, VP Consulting and Business. So let me open the panel discussion. The topic is India's Pharma Industry Outlook 2021. There are 3 tracks. The first track, every speaker will briefly speak for 60 seconds for each on the panel discussion topic. The second track will be for 3 minutes for each panelist, and the third track will be 3 minutes for each panelist, followed by Q&A, where we will have 15 minutes of Q&A after the commencement of after the finalization of panel discussion. So now I request Mr. Yogin Majumdar, CMD Bakul Group, to give his 60 seconds opening remark on India's pharma industry outlook 2021.
Well, thank you, Mr. Prashant. You said good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where your other participants are, or those who are listeners today. We are, as most of the people know, already considered pharmacy of the world, being able to already in the volume terms 3rd and 13th or 14th in the value terms of the exports which we make. What we have with the opening up of the economy and the latest budget, where again the finance minister has put a very big emphasis on healthcare, and a big amount is, although it is supposed to go at the ground level to for the patients to actually get the medicines, but the medicine have to be manufactured. So ultimately, the pharma industry is going to have a very big opportunity. Formulation first, then APIs next, and even the ingredients all. So it's as I see next months and weeks, years are very encouraging months for this particular sector. That's I see just now. I think at the moment I'll just leave it at that. Then I'll go into nitty-gritty later on when you.
Now I would request Mr. Raghuveer Kini, former ED Pharmaxel, to give his opening remarks for 60 seconds.
Unmute me, sir.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. And first of all, India, as Yogin Bhai said, India is known as the pharmacy of the world because India provides generic medicines to more than 180 countries in the world, and 9 out of 25 generic global generic companies are from India. And you know, you are aware how India has come to the rescue of the entire world by way of COVID vaccines, or you can, you know, it is rightly known as the pharmacy of the world because, see, if you remember, during the early stages of COVID lockdown and all, we were the net importers of PPE suits, your sanitizers, you know, and within a short span of time, India would export PPE suits, and you name it, and India has done it. Let's go into nitty-gritties later. And as we all know, India is always known as the pharmacy of the world and will always remain as the pharmacy of the world, providing quality medicines, quality and affordable medicines to the entire world.
So good to hear from you, Raghuveer ji, that we would continue to remain the pharmacy of the world. So there is nobody who can challenge us as we move forward, which is a very good sign for in terms of Outlook 2021. Now I request Mr. Komu Nagaya, Chief Scientist and Head. He is also heading the Center for Natural Product and Traditional Knowledge, which was very effective during COVID-19. Sir, your 60 seconds.
Okay, sir. Respected all the speakers of topic today. I am very thankful to our webinar organizer, Praveen Prashant ji. So recently our Minister of the Chemical and Fertilizers, D.V. Sadananda Gowda, has congratulated the pharma industry partners for outstanding work during the pandemic. India has been serving from the more than 200 plus countries and territories. So with this pharma product, and will be continue for discharge our responsibility. But today I am going to talk on India should focus on pharma intermediate self-sufficiency by 2023 and related issues. So in my topic I will cover in this. For this I will give the answer and not only question. I am going to give answer for this. So India is depends for the on China for the pharma intermediates. change if there is a proper coordination between the educational institutions, research institutions, and the pharma manufacturers. So this coordination is badly needed from it is doing, but it is needed. This coordination is more important to self-sufficiency by 2023 or 2030. What our Minister of Chemical and Fertilizer insisting.
Thank you, Nagaya sir. Now I request Suresh ji and Suresh, who used to be on the other side few years back, in my shoes or in my chair. Now he's representing as Chief Operating Officer ABLE. So, sir, your 60 seconds of Chemical Industry Outlook 2021. If you can unmute yourself, Suresh ji.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's audible now.
Yeah. Thank you, Praveen. So for the benefit of the attendees, so ABLE is the Association of Biotechnology-Led Enterprises. Since it's primarily the pharmaceutical, I will give a perspective on the biotechnology, which is a very, very small segment of the entire pharma industry, because, and particularly, of course, biotechnology covers 5, 6 distinct segments. So I will, whatever I talked about today will be confined to a very small segment, which is the biopharmaceuticals, which is almost 2/3 or 60% of the biotechnology industry. Other 40% is made up of agriculture, BT, cotton, and many bioservices and many other sectors. So in biopharma, so basically 2020 has proved to be a very, very good for the sector, not only in India, globally, because the first thing any biotechnology CEO says is that COVID has given a new lease of life to biotechnology sector. Because one, in terms of awareness, it is tremendous awareness it has created globally about what the biotechnology sector can do. And second, today the world is looking at biotechnology sector, and at least people know what the products are. And of course, COVID vaccine is the hottest medical product in the world currently. So that is what one of the primary products of biotechnology sector. So I think I'll stop here and we'll discuss more in detail later.
Thank you, Suresh ji. Now I would request Mr. Govind K. Jaju, partner Singora Consulting. Just about Singora Consulting, they have clients like Biogen, Lupin, Sandoz, Ranbaxy, SKNF, Reckitt & Coleman, Boehringer Knoll, and Nicholas. So over to Mr. Govind K. Jaju.
Thank you, Praveen. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My personal impression about outlook of Indian pharma industry for the year 2021 is very, very positive. In fact, this is one of the few industries which has not only survived COVID, but also had a growth in 2020. No doubt the growth wasn't in line with average growth we see every year. And that, of course, will mean that 2021 growth over this base is going to be very good, much more than what we normally expect. And the reason which I believe is there's going to be vaccination of at least 36 to 40 crores of people. And there are going to be at least $45 billion of patent expiries in next 3 years. And majority of that also will come in the next year. There is a rising demand of a lot of drugs during pandemic, which will continue. I also feel that the price erosion which was happening in US and was dampening pharma industry in India should get normalized this year. And with this improved profitability, a lot of cost-saving initiatives companies had started during pandemic, like digital marketing, reduction in travel and promotion. Not all, but partially that will continue. And this will also should boost up profitability of the sector. And therefore, I feel it is very, very positive. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Abhinav Dandia, CEO, Spira Pharma. This company is focusing on drug discovery and development capabilities to bring innovative products to patients, and their main focus is on oncology. So, over to Mr. Abhinav Dandia.
Thank you, Praveen, and a very good afternoon to all our viewers and speakers. Thank you for inviting us to this wonderful seminar topic. I'd just like to draw the attention of this group. A couple of days back, the Canadian head of state reached out to our Prime Minister for assistance related to the vaccine supply. And it's one of those rare moments, that make you feel proud of being part of an industry that has given India the representation on a global scale. The only classifier that I would put in is that this gels well with our philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumba, which we believe that the world is one family. The only classifier that I'd say is that, as Mr. Majmudar mentioned earlier in his opening remarks, that we probably rank in top 3 in terms of volume, but in top 13 in terms of value. And I think that's where our opportunity lies. Over 2021, I see that as a major year where Indian pharma companies and biotechs would get a push to move up the value chain. I look forward to the rest of our discussions.
Abhinav, you brought a very interesting perspective, and I was reminded that very few years back, we used to get a penicillin vaccine or medicine, whatever you call it, from Canada. And today is a day when we are giving a corona vaccine from India to Canada.
It's proud. It's a proud moment.
Despite the PM, Canadian PM, trying to, what we can say, talk about Khalistan in a big way, which is a big achievement for all of us. Thanks, Abhinav. We have with us Sameer Raval. He's from the startup category. He's the founder director, Magnizent Pharmachem. And Sameer wants to take tough challenge in life. That's the reason he left what we can say better more better telecom world, and has now jumped into pharma to leave his imprint going forward. So if you can give Sameer 60 seconds thought on this, on Pharma Outlook 2021.
Thank you so much, Praveen, for inviting us. First of all, I would like to congratulate ICN to establish itself so credibly in such a short span of time. Well, IC being a startup, but because of the PLI scheme launched by the government of India, I still feel it is quite a lucrative sector for us. And I see this, what Mr. Jaju also says, as a new sunrise industry. I see pharma taking up as a new sunrise industry for India. While a couple of my colleagues also said that we are the pharmacy of the world, but what is the net revenue that we are putting? It's 20 billion. Whereas if I need to compare it with China, it is somewhere about 130 billion. So what Abhinav also said, that while we are in top 3 in terms of pharmacy producers, but we are not in terms of value. So this gives a lot of chance for manufacturers like us, to establish a relationship between the industry association, research institutes, and make a very collaborative efforts. What I have seen, what I have learned from China, is that only this side of collaboration that works fine. And I would like to speak more on this as and when my turn comes. Thank you.
Thanks, Sameer. We have with us Mr. K. Srinivas from Biocast Solutions. So, Srini, if you can give your 60 seconds.
Sure. Hello, everyone. In fact, I thank ICN and Mr. Praveen for inviting me here, and it's great pleasure and privilege to be amongst all of you. In fact, the last year, 2020, the pandemic forced all companies to rethink many aspects of their business. And the same also held true for our own industry, the pharma companies. So rather, we had a greater expectation and a responsibility. And what we achieved in 2020 will certainly go into the annals of history in the accomplishments that the pharma industry had achieved. So the pharma industry, our industry, improved the speed and accuracy of finding and mass producing novel drugs, treatment methods, vaccines, and what we had to respond to a very large scale and high pressure demand. And we did achieve that. So that's what happened in 2020. Going forward in 2021, as the year begins, what I see that the industry is actually resting on some very strong levers. Top of the mind levers that come to me is in terms of government's focus on health and well-being, India demonstrating its vaccine leadership, as Mr. Kinney mentioned, increased spending and an improved access to healthcare. We also see startups and scale-ups happening at the intersection of R&D, biotech, pharma, healthcare. This is where it's happening. And also self-reliance, we can't ignore self-reliance in PLI, the kind of initiatives by the government. And probably being an avid stock investor, and I can't help but mention that the Nifty Pharma Index, which is a proxy representation of our industry, is at a 5-year high. So I think we are at the cusp of a great transformation that's going to happen to this industry. And I'm sure 2021 will deliver really potentially game-changing solutions for the industry and also for the country at large. Probably in today's discussion, I think for the audience, what you can expect from me is in terms of I'll bring in thoughts on pharma in relation to healthcare and from an outcomes perspective. Thank you. Thank you, Praveen.
Thanks, Srini. We have concluded our first track. Let me throw some light on what the ministry expects from all of us. Very recently, Mr. Sadanand Gowda is talking about US dollar 130 billion by 2030. He is also looking at, or he has already allocated 3,000 odd crores for creation of three major bulk drug parks. So with this into background, now I again start the second track, and I would request Yogin Majmudar, because he is in the helm of the affairs, talking to the ministry, and if he can talk about how do we move ahead from what we did in 2020 with respect to the PLI scheme is already there. How do we reduce dependence on China, and how do we leverage whatever the government is trying to help us in a big way? So over to Mr. Yogin Majmudar.
Thank you, Praveenji. As Mr. Dr. Nagaya mentioned, India has been to a great extent in last 15 years dependent on China for the intermediates and at some even the APIs in some cases. So our first and foremost government, their government as well as I would say the private sector industry, the first thought is how do we get out of that? There has been various thoughts and various discussions from the government. They even made a few years back a year of the bulk drugs, but nothing much came out of it. Then after that, industry has been pushing, government has been also looking at it. Various our secretaries in the pharma department have been coming, going. Different ideas have been coming. Even IICT had been giving a lot of ideas. How do we make new products? As IDMA, we had meeting with IICT and our industry, and we had worked out a very good roadmap that how does IICT and even universities can help in the industry and particularly MSMEs to develop processes and particularly on products which we are at the moment we are dependent on China. So there has been going on, but the progress has been unfortunately rather slow all these years. Now only the last year in PLI scheme is of course the outcome and output of all these only. There have been certain I would say loopholes which still need to be filled in. We have been discussing with government. What they have done is they came out for 53 or so drugs, which come down to actually 41 molecules, because some of the molecules are common and used in more than one drugs. Now these 41 molecules are of course just a tip of the iceberg. We require at least 400, if not 4,000 to be manufactured ultimately in India. That, but it's a beginning. That. Now I'll just point out why the government has still gone a little off, because they had identified that there'll be for 41 drugs, some 136 they expected applicants to be given finally chosen, but 216 or so have so far applied. And at the moment, they have only come out for the fermentation products. They are divided into 4 groups. Fermentation was there, 4 products of fermentation, which were the most important and the most expensive to manufacture, and the capex wise also. They've identified 4 and 4 indigenous entrepreneurs who would be taking up. It just happens that 3 out of the 4 are the same group. So then one can say that still people are shying away and not wanting to expand. There are various reasons. One is, I would say, the previous, how they had burnt the fingers, all those who are in fermentation industry. Suddenly the Chinese reduced and they had invested huge amounts, and all of them had to shut down with a humongous amount of losses. So for that, we had suggested from IDMA that why don't you, in the guideline itself, put some that in the event of future predatory pricing movements by Chinese, government will do some hand-holding. They didn't want to put anti-dumping or so. I said anything within the framework of the international trade regulations permitted within that, put it. So that will give more, but some reason there were some reservations. They have not gone ahead. They said that we have noted in our internal papers everywhere that whichever government comes and a new administration comes, they'll all see that. But the potential investors will see in black and white today, have they put it. So that was one point which they had. And the second very big one, they have come with this all for greenfield. We have been saying if you want an immediate benefit, you should go for brownfield, where the existing capacity that I would say in MSMEs at least 30% is a spare capacity available across the country. And that if that can be tapped straight away, we can get within 6 months production. What they have planned is will take minimum 2 years. Earlier they had the plan for this year as the first year. Now that itself got delayed. So far, though, they have not even identified the other than the 41, other than the 4, I would say, the remaining 37. So by the time they do it, 2023 will be over, and when they expect the production to come in the first year of PLI scheme, where they'll give the benefit, will probably further get delayed. That. So still there is a time. There is another PLI scheme coming for the 10,000 crore one, and we have put it across, and in this one at least open it up and see that even the existing capacities can be tapped. So that's my point on that.
So is the government looking at whatever your suggestions for the second PLI scheme?
Well, we don't know. At the moment, they are still in this one. They want to go for bigger companies, bigger investments. That seems to be their thrust. In the other earlier one, they said it was a smaller, we didn't go for very big investments and all. Now, minimum investment, something like that they are looking at. So this might again get overlooked. It's possibility.
Thank you, sir, for your candid view. Now I would request Mr. Raghuveer Kini, if we can throw some light on, the pharma exports were $20.58 billion in FY 2019-20. So what's the export numbers he's looking for 2021 and ahead? And the second, just a continuation of this question itself, is now with the MEIS going away, how will it impact pharma's revenue in 2021 and the impact of RoDTEP? So over to Mr. Raghuveer Kini.
First of all, pharma exports has been growing, and it was $20.6 billion last year. And I personally anticipate that pharma exports during this year, with all this COVID vaccines and everything coming around, it should touch 25 billion, surely. It should touch 25 billion this year, because I understand that growth up to November is around 14% growth is already there in the pharma sector, and which is likely to be. Second, coming to the point of MEIS. MEIS stopping is not, it is by compulsion, because there was a case in the WTO where India has lost, because it is proved that MEIS is a subsidy, and because of that there were strictures from WTO, and that is how RoDTEP has come in. And RoDTEP is a scheme where they're going to include all the taxes, input level taxes suffered will be reimbursed. And I think working is still going on, and we have to provide the data to the ministry for calculation of this thing. And second thing is that what I feel is that many of the members are not utilizing the existing benefits available to them. Rather than MEIS, there is another scheme which, supposing everybody is aware that when I have to export, I need to register the products in the foreign countries. All my products are to be registered, and the registration fees runs into thousands of dollars. Now, under the MEI scheme, Government of India reimburses 50% of the registration fees paid by the companies, subject to a maximum of 2 crores per annum. That is, if you spend 4 crores, 2 crores will be reimbursed by the Government of India, which many of us are not taking the benefit of the same. And if these benefits are taken, I feel that, it will be a very good scheme which should be utilized. And RoDTEP, definitely, if we give all the input level taxes, so which will be calculated in terms of percentage, and it will be fixed, and it will go through. I don't see any this thing, because similarly when DPP was also, when DPP had gone, we were also this thing that then the MEI scheme came, and we have adapted to the MEI scheme. It will not be a big problem.
Thank you, sir. I request delegates to please put their questions in the Q&A window, and after the panel discussion, we will take it up. We have allotted 15 minutes for that. So whenever you feel that a question arises in your mind, please type it in the Q&A chat window. Over to now Mr. Komu Nagaiya or K. Nagaiya from CSI IICT Hyderabad. Sir, you have around 39 Institute of CSIR labs. How can government leverage these R&D labs for the pharma sector in terms of manufacturing of intermediates and APIs? So request if you can talk for 3.5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You have the track 2 for 3 minutes more, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I am continuing with Majmundar and Raghuvi. So, aiming over dependency of the APIs and drug intermediates and key starting intermediates, it is heartening to note that Indian drugs, mostly on generics, are exporting from 200 countries plus. But enough attention is not made, enough attention is not given to the manufacturers of the basic chemicals like solvents and many derivatives of pyridine, methyl acrylate and others. The large-scale manufacturers manufacturing of these compounds involve the vapor phase reaction, high temperature and catalysts like alumina, montololides and zeolites, and it is required long distillation columns, and these are mostly carried out by the chemical engineers involving huge chemical reactors. So although some institutes are carrying out the application of new catalysts in this process, but these restricted to only laborate in gram quantity only. So India is exporting generic drugs many countries, but formulated drugs or tablets are facing rejections by US FDA because of human air or glass pieces, contamination of the contamination, change of the color, etc. So, and these rejections are well documented even in their companies. So popular generic, in India, some popular generic drugs tablets were a colored coating, while some branded drugs are colorless. So it is clear some external impurities are lack of proper crystallization, because this is play a very important key role in the crystallization. Crystallization play a vital role in the control of impurities. So responsible impact for some other drugs which are not coated, unfortunately. In the meeting, in a meeting 10 years back, famous Indian organic chemist scientists said that India lacks expertise to discover new drugs. And the same some hold good even today. To discover new drugs, a close contamination of life sciences scientists familiar with biology, that is a DNA or RNA or protein or enzymes. Virtual modeling knowledge of computer science are necessary with medicinal organic chemistry. Indian universities has never given emphasis on biology, microbiology, and genetics as teaching subject, and private universities that sprung are just glorified engineering college where emphasis on the computers, artificial intelligence, and robotics, etc., and which have no relevance to the Indian context. A recent COVID-19 pandemic revealed that the knowledge of the virology and epidemiology in India are just rudimentary. So, and only 3-4 national institutes are working on life sciences. It is clear that life sciences teaching and research need to be improved, so the Indian papers on corona in international journals can be increased, because we have seen more than 4,000 to 5,000 journal articles published on corona, but from Indian side only it is a many in fingers. So for pharmaceutical intermediates who are dependent on China, if the drug has 8 steps of reactions, were importing 6 intermediates from China or other countries. It is evident from the recent COVID-19 pandemic that there will be a shortage of life-saving drugs if there is a lockdown in China, though our drug manufacturers give assurance to the government that they have the stockpile of the advanced drug intermediate for the at least 2 years. One silver lining of Indian drug manufacturers is patients from advanced countries visiting to India for treatment. For example, the subdosovir drug for using for hepatitis C is manufactured in India. The treatment cost is in India only 60,000. But if you want to take the same treatment in advanced countries, it is costing 60 lakhs. So life-saving drugs like the telmisartan and Montoloco class, several NIPS and anti-cancer drugs, important example of imatinib, all antiviral drugs have several synthetic steps. At least these kind of the drugs our industry need to be synthesized completely from starting to final product. In fact, 80% of the drug companies is being imported in China. We have the figures about 2,405 billions. It is 67% worth of the drugs are imported to India. It is the responsibility of the private drug industries to manufacture intermediate by taking the assistance of the national institutes to provide the cost-effective and easy synthetic process. The academic institutes like universities with lack of funds from the research may not have able to contribute in this area. India is mostly manufacturing generic drugs. The production of the corresponding intermediates may not pose any problems. Big drug company industries should encourage accelerate small chemical industry, that is MSM, is what our introduction remarks are told, industries to produce drug intermediates. The government also should encourage these small industries by way of giving, that is already giving subsidies, and by the act waivers. Therefore, the emphasis is in India should self-sufficiency in manufacturing advanced drug intermediate in India itself by 2033. The most important thing what I want to say, intermediates required for bulk drug production essential to manufacture, because most of the intermediates are imported from abroad, especially from that China. That why they are importing China means it is cheaper as compared to Western countries and USA. So another thing, solvents required for manufacturers from THF, dioxin, but these should be manufactured in bulk in India using catalytic method. That is very much essential to make process commercially viable. So second, small values of drug in high cost. There are drugs are there for it is required on 5 kg or 10 kgs. So these drugs should be manufactured in India, depending on the need of the society of Indian population. Mostly like tuberculosis, asthma, antiviral, and antifungal. Such type of essential drugs should be manufactured in large quantities. So another drugs like beta-lactams, antibiotics, and fourth generation of this should be manufactured in India to make it accessible in Indian population. In the conclusion, what I wanted to say, we feel proud of our Indian drug industries exporting several generic drugs to other countries as well as meeting Indian requirement. As I told earlier, 80% of drug companies, that is advanced pharma intermediates, are being imported from China. This you have to minimize. And what happening if they stop is this import component, life-saving drugs no longer available in India. That is why I am emphasizing the pharma intermediates should be manufactured in India. Then only we could achieve the Atmanirbhar in drug sector by 2023. So what I want to do, this is the collective, what for introduction, this is the collective responsibility of the institutes, universities, and Indian industries.
Thank you, Nagaya ji, for your very passionate plea for effective coordination between universities, R&D labs, and the industry. Now I request N. Suresh, if he can talk about the redefining India's pharma target for 2021, the growth drivers. Since he has to leave, I will give him 5 minutes. And I would also like to talk to him for the second track also at the same time. So if he can also talk about the role of COVID-19 vaccine in India's growth story. So he can elaborate on these 2 points.
Okay, thank you, Praveen. Sorry, I'll have to leave after this because it's a monthly scheduled able webinar where I'm the moderator. I have to do your role 15 minutes from now. So anyway, that was fixed before this. So what I would say is that, the biopharma industry is roughly about, pulling in $5 billion of revenue last year, because biopharma, of course, vaccine, including all the vaccines and therapeutics and others. So if you go by, the COVID vaccine, Indian vaccine companies are all set to manufacture close to 3 billion doses of this vaccine. Even a $3 realization per dose, it's going to be humongous. $9 to $10 billion is it's almost double or triple the size of pharmaceutical if all goes well. Why I emphasize if all goes well, let's not be, too over optimistic, even in the COVID scenario, because last year around August, September, the whole world, or at least everyone in India, was asking about when will the vaccine come. But today we have a vaccine with us since December. But as you are aware, it is only an emergency use authorization, which means companies have to follow strict guidelines from the government regulators, as well as the threat of Indian Disaster Management Act is also on their heads, so that they can go only by the government diktat on manufacturing and supply of this vaccine. So even with almost 1 month of vaccination drive, even 45% of the targeted audience, which is the healthcare workers who are the frontline workers who are closest and highest risk of COVID, have not taken the vaccine. The vaccine hesitancy is a major headache because, so if you throw it open, we don't know, because these have caused doubts on the whole process. And second stage, you're talking about 30 million, next stage, people above 50. But if it is 45, again, the same vaccine hesitancy continues, 45% do not take it, then you are still, we may claim that we are the fastest to reach 6 million, 7 million vaccination. But remember, we have 1,300 million people to vaccinate. At 2 million vaccinations per day, even in a very, very highly targeted group, we are talking about 600 days to complete vaccination. So unless something changes dramatically, all these numbers, all this we are talking about will still be on paper. That is a worry within the industry, because since it is a conditional emergency use approval, it just stays there without, moving to the next stage or commercial market authorization. It is a very, very difficult task. And also the companies are struggling without a firm commitment on the vaccination drive, either within the country, or possibility of export. So the companies are not able to keep their supply chains in order so that they can start manufacturing next stage of the vaccine. So yes, 9 to 10 billion. If all this goes, only the COVID should add about $10 billion, which is double the 3 times the current value to the pharma outlook. But yes, it all depends on how the policies and regulations are framed in the next few weeks, because these are crucial for the whole vaccination. Sorry to give a pessimistic view, but that's a reality we are facing. So otherwise, the rest of the industry, yes, they're all going at 78% compared to double-digit growth. But last year was because other treatments are not going on. There's a dip, but this year, hopefully, or this year and next year, other treatments should also get more attention globally, because the biopharma industry is almost 50% dependent on exports, or more than 50% of the products are exported. So that's where we stand today, Praveen.
Suresh, so you are saying that there would be additional $10 billion of revenue coming from COVID vaccine. That is what.
Yeah, that's simple. No, so because Indian manufacturers have the capacity, there is a global orders, whether they pick it up. So this is, if you are talking about 3 billion doses, even at average $3 per dose, it's $9 billion of additional revenue if all things happen as it is, projected. So that's the. Otherwise, it's $5 billion.
So that is going to add to our revenue and increase the revenue for both 2020-21 and 2021-22.
Yeah, only this biopharma sector from 5 billion, it should be $15 billion if all these things are, fall into place.
Thanks, Sureshji, for your time. I know you have to moderate a session, so I will not keep you waiting. And thank you for participating in ICN conference.
Thank you so much. I'll be happy to answer the questions later. If there are anything forwarded to me, then I can answer. I can send it to the. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Govind K. Jaju, partner Singora Consulting, if he can talk about what steps India need to take for manufacturing of APIs and intermediates.
Okay, when I go back to 1990s, India was actually making all the APIs and intermediates, most of it. And there was hardly any import from China, which gives me a confidence that India has necessary infrastructure, people, knowledge, intelligence, everything in India. I think what did not work in India's favor, what did not work in India's favor was Chinese policy of API, where they could give a lot of concession to their manufacturers. Their manufacturing model was, in a way, the big manufacturing batches. They gave a lot of low logistic cost, electricity, everything subsidized. So in the process, when the commerce happened, the material, the intermediate, the side chain, everything which was coming from China was much cheaper than India. And that resulted into most of this, or when I say most, around 70% of our imports of either API or advanced intermediate or key starting material came from China. And that is in terms of national health or drug security. This was a big challenge. I think government has realized that, and what made them actually realize is this: one is COVID, and second is tension on the China border. Therefore, I think the first thing what they did is coming out with this policy whereby they could support the API industry. That is PLI I'm talking about. If you really see the way the China has worked, they have made low value, high volume APIs much more cost effective, which India could not match. Therefore, when you see today, most of the imports which is coming from them is high volume. In fact, this government, 53 molecules they have selected, that accounts for more than 50% of imports from China. So if this scheme, or I would say this scheme will work, and when it works, it will definitely reduce the dependence on China from these low-cost molecules. I think government's entire focus was how to make it more competitive for the manufacturer, which means they have talked about API parks, where there could be common services. They have talked about financial support, which is based on the invoicing value. I think I also saw the government was quite flexible. Initially, they said they will not be giving this benefit to export, but they agreed on that. They also reduced the limits for investment. So in a whole, nearly 215 applications came to them from 83 different manufacturers. And I believe it should work because at least the first 5 pharma projects have been approved and with a good investment. The investment of first 5 pharma, which are basically fermentation based, goes beyond 3,700 crores. And I believe the remaining applications which are there of 200 and odd should also will have other molecules in it. I believe as this scheme gets implemented, there are definitely some issues which need to be discussed with government and will get solution. But having said that, there is another 50% or 40 to 50% intermediates or imports which we are doing, which is high value APIs. Now, in this high value APIs, I'm sure the industry is also taking up this challenge that how do we reduce the dependency on China? When we increase our exports of formulation, finally the dependency still remains on China. Even if we make API, we are getting advanced intermediate or key starting material from China. So many of the companies in their strategy are working on how to create this backward integration, and this will work. When both these things get implemented, let's say by 2023, I'm quite hopeful that India will come back like what it was there in 1990s or so, where not only formulations, but backed up by API, which is also in turn backed up by advanced intermediate, is what Indian scenario will be. And that's what I feel. Thank you.
Sir, Mr. Govind, if you can, you said that more than 3,000 crores will be invested. So yeah. Will this be really be invested, or will this be only in paper, only on paper?
I believe, look, the companies which have gone into this 4 or 5 molecules, which is basically penicillin G, 7-ACA, erythioc, and clavulanic acid. And these are the big fermentation-based, big consumption fermentation-based atoms. The companies which are backing are also in a good financial shape. No doubt, today they have given a project which is accepted, and they will need to, and they have committed. Let's say 3,700 crore is what they have committed. When it works, definitely they will have to invest this amount of money because fermentation needs good investment. And it's not that fermentation of standard size. Some of these molecules will need a huge fermenters, and therefore that investment will be required. And if you don't have those huge fermenters, you may not be able to compete with China in terms of cost. So I believe this will happen.
Thank you, sir. Avinav, if you can talk about the growth drivers in, if you can talk about the R&D push for novel molecules.
Sure. Thanks, Praveen. And before I get on to that specific topic, I also just wanted to draw attention, also provide some sort of a contrarian perspective to what the honorable speakers have mentioned so far. It is true that India, almost 70% of its API dependence is still on China. Everything, this is a very well-established fact. Import substitution is the need of the hour. At the same time, we should also look at how a country like US, which is the world's largest pharmaceutical market, has evolved itself. If we look at the US, only 28% of the plants that are registered with the US FDA for supplying APIs to the US are within the US. Rest, all the generic manufacturing and other things have all been outsourced long time back. The question is that if we have to move up the value chain, as we sit here in 2021, after a good year for the pharmaceutical industry, at a springboard year of sorts, do we see the value of matching China at their game, or actually thinking how we can completely leapfrog that step and move up to the value chain, which for example, the US has done for the last 10, 15 years plus? And that's where the background that I come from, drug discovery and development based innovation, the fact remains that we make all generic products. And whether from an API perspective or a new technology perspective, we'll always be dependent in a globally integrated and connected world. I think at some point we have to accept that that is not going to change. Yes, we need to diminish our dependence and make ourselves self-sufficient. Atmanirbhar is, self-sufficiency rather than completely self-reliant. Uh, there is not, the world is not going to become an isolated place post-COVID. At least I don't see that happening. So how do we keep up and increase our relevance? Where will our investments yield maximum returns? Increasing capacities is the way to go. But to completely replace what China has been doing over the last 15 years or so, that it's going to take decades, if not earlier. And while we must embark on that, it's a good strategy. We should also look at this other perspective. The other perspective says that almost 85 to 90% of new drugs discovered are coming out from the US biotech and academic collaborator system. So something they must be doing could be right. And it's not to ape the West, it's to learn from their positive experience and see how we can incorporate that within our systems. Mr. Jaju rightly said that 90s was the era where the generic manufacturers drove and put India on the global pharmaceutical map. Should we continue to think in those terms, or we really need to step up and say, how can we increase the public-private partnership in terms of academia and industry to focus on research? And I'm not talking about incremental innovation of improving processes or coming up with new formulations. Not saying that that's not important, but can we think beyond that? Can we give ourselves a target that in the next 5 or 7 years, we need to come up with a drug that afflicts patients of the Indian subcontinent by pharma companies based out of India, rather than relying on a PRV voucher related scheme that the US FDA has launched, which incentivizes US-based pharma companies to discover drugs for tropical countries. In summary, what I would like to say is that our pharma entrepreneurs and leaders have to defend some of the market pressures of the investor expectations of annual growth percentages, quarter-on-quarter returns, year-on-year returns, and see if they can actually take some of the hard steps which will not give them any good results in a 12-month within the financial year kind of a time frame, but can really poise the entire industry and ecosystem over the next 5-year vision. That is something that we should be thinking and talking about. And drug discovery is definitely one way to think about it. We have a huge push from BIRAC. I think the work that BIRAC has done over the last 5 years has been extremely commendable. And the commercial structure and risk-taking abilities from our larger pharma companies also need to be there, which enables and supports smaller biotechs to take clinical risks. Sorry, Praveen, if you're saying something, you're on mute, please.
Thanks, Anubhav. And Abhinav, you were trying to say that not move on the rat race, but focus more on the innovation. And that's where you will gain maximum, and you will also get maximum price also at the same time. Samir, if you can throw some light on the learnings from China and how it can be replicated. You used to work for a Chinese company, so you have a lot of inroads about China and their operating system. So if you can talk about that. And how it will help you in your startup journey.
Certainly. So yes, I'm quite young at this point of time in this elite forum. All of you, what you are saying, all holds true. Couple of things that were being mentioned by earlier colleague, Mr. Kinney, about the fact that while the revenue has to increase by 15% or 14%, the input level taxes should be reduced. What our earlier the chairman of Bakul Industries, also said that the brownfield should get more prominence. What Abhinav said is about the drug discovery. So both tracks are important. But let me share my experience. I don't come from a pharma background, but from a telecom background, where I have the privilege of hosting our current Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, while he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat in my company headquarters in China. And I remember, because I being a Gujarati, explaining him to in the national language, when he asked that, what have you learned by staying in China? How the business is done here? So I answered very briefly to him was, here the entire ecosystem works together. The entire chain is being put across in a single geographic location, which really helps them to, all these subsidies that Mr. Kinney also mentioned. Yes, they were available, but at the same time, this all ecosystem putting together at one place, it really helped China a lot. While what I see at this point of time, when I am a startup here in manufacturing, in India, where we are lacking is the fact that while we are talking that the interface should be there, the ecosystem should be established, on ground, the linkages between industry association, academic institution, and the manufacturers, that doesn't exist as it should be. While it exists, it can be, my request to the academia as well as the industry association is to, go more deeper. Try to, young manufacturers like us, we should go and we should also follow, take more advice from you people, and this is how the growth will actually happen. I have a different view when it says that the emphasis should be given on brownfield, because the almost like 30% capacities already exist. But at the same time, I feel that unless and until the new blood which doesn't come into this industry, whether it is in the form of capex or it is in the form of this thing, it will not broaden the scope. My thing is that we should increase the size of the cake of our pharma industry, collaborate more, and I would encourage more and more youngsters to rather jump into the pharma bandwagon, as it is a new sunrise industry. Come in the manufacturing space, manufacture as much as you can, and it's an open market. Let's try and compete with the best of the world.
Thanks, Samir, for your views. Now I would request K. Srinivas, BioQuest Solutions, if he can focus on identifying the growth drivers across key pharma segments in 2021.
Thank you, Praveen. Thank you very much. So, in fact, nice to listen to all the panelists and their perspectives on, and some of them already touched upon what they presume would be the drivers for the industry. So while there will be many drivers that for the pharma industry for 2021, perhaps I would like to focus on a few of them, which I believe would drive the pharma industry for 2021. And since all of you have touched upon, or most of you have touched upon, the role of the government in terms of promoting, being very, very important and critical in terms of driving this growth. So perhaps I'll put that at the front in terms of being one of the key drivers. Early this month, we saw the budget being released, and we saw of the 6 pillars, healthcare and health and well-being, one of those critical pillars. And the budget more than kind of doubled to about $30 billion. And the focus of the government in terms of self-reliance, especially with attention on scaling production, I feel that these are some factors which at least give us a feeling that there is a commitment from the government in terms towards the industry. The intent is very good, and seems to be a commitment. And this is from the government perspective towards the health. I also wish to touch upon the other aspect of it in terms of factors within the country. And that is the very interesting, great innovation story that we have. In fact, I'm sure you must have seen that in 2020, India climbed up 4 spots to be the 48th country amongst the Global Innovation Index, 3rd amongst low and middle income economies. In addition to that, we are the 3rd largest in terms of startup economy, 50,000 startups. And I don't know, some would have added today. And this is actually a good sign in terms of showing that we are progressing in the right direction. So much to say, when Atmanirbhar Bharat provides a direction to promote homegrown innovations. So I believe government policies with a commitment towards the industry, coupled with innovative pharma service models in this space, will help in India leapfrogging to the next league. So this is one of the drivers that I can think of. The second is in terms of access to information. I'm sure you must have read and seen penetration of mobile and internet highest in the world today. And India has got the cheapest data costs in the world. Today, we have over 700 million internet users. And the number of rural internet users has gone up beyond urban users. The first time it has ever happened. Access to information has increased for patients and consumers. And the pandemic, thanks to the pandemic, it actually brought in increased health consciousness amongst consumers. And even there's a change in attitude amongst consumers too towards self-medication now, and more importantly in the areas of nutrition, wellness, etc. And because of which there is a demand. And I believe that these factors would bring in a great change in a great push to OTC and also to rural health. I think this is going to be one of the drivers for 2021 in terms of OTC push owing to demand from consumers. And certainly we would see pharmaceutical companies rejigging their portfolios to accommodate this. And the third driver that comes to my mind is in terms of insurance. So we have every conference that I attend to on insurance, I find that the numbers always been single digits. Probably in the last few years, we moved to double digits, but still there's an 80% population which is either underinsured, insured, or uninsured. And thanks to COVID-19 provided the tailwinds, and which brought about a tectonic shift in the mindset of consumers, that they moved health insurance from being a priority to being a necessity. And I recall in the last, in the recent budget, I think the finance minister has also increased the FDI cap on insurance, I think to 74 or 79%. So I believe these would help better penetration of health insurance within the country. There would be new products and there would be more value-based, affordable healthcare options for Indians. So I believe this would be one of the key drivers for the pharma industry, creating the pull. So these are all factors which would create a pull, which will in terms of impact the industry. And the fourth driver that I could think of is biologics. I wish Suresh was here to throw in more light on it, but I think we are growing up the chain in the biosimilars. I think he would not allow me to use biosimilars. He says you should use similar biologics is the name that we have to use. I believe that just as it happened in chemistry, probably a couple of decades ago, I'm very confident that this will happen with biosimilars in the next 5 to 10 years. We can see that the road ahead is getting better. In fact, before COVID vaccine came into, I think the kind of numbers that biosimilars are putting in was about 22% CAGR and reaching over $12 billion in the next 3 to 4 years. I really thank Abel's effort and Suresh's effort in that area. And along with the only challenge being in terms of affordability and access. I think these are taken care of. I think the pharma would find a great opportunity in biologics going forward. And probably this will also spin off one another need is in terms of for the healthcare providers or the stakeholders to kind of understand and recommend biosimilars. I think the physicians would have to augment their knowledge and skills. And this will actually lead to a lot of public-private partnerships in area of education and skills, where the industry, academia, and a fraternity have to come together. And the fifth key driver that is in terms of access to healthcare for patients. I think the insurance has got a certain limitation. It can do certain things, and there's a huge gap which insurance doesn't cover, wherein access could be provided. And pharma companies in the last many years have been used to kind of providing subsidies. So probably matching the kind of expenditure that a patient does, or giving discounts, etc. So I would not say this has been a loss, but more importantly, it has been lost opportunity for pharma companies. And in the recent past, I think we saw early last year that banks coming into the picture now. If I could buy a home appliance by having EMI, why can't I have a total knee replacement, a TKR or a THR, by paying an EMI? So banks have now come forward, and you have medical care being provided by banks for prosthetics, for surgeries on EMI. So patient centricity from pharma companies towards making healthcare treatment accessible to patients, I think is one of those fifth key drivers that you can think of.
Srinivas, we have come to the end of the track too. We are a bit late, so would request if I can start the track from your side itself, and if you can just take 2 minutes and talk about the access to next generation technologies across value chain.
Sure. Thanks, Praveen. So I believe that while 2020 had accelerated and laid the foundation for digital transformation and innovation for healthcare, I very strongly believe that 2021 will support and further broaden access and increase digital footprints across. I would just put it on, I would just speak about 3 aspects of technology which I believe amongst many would propel this. One is in terms of remote patient monitoring and wearables. And the second is in terms of insights. And the third is engagement. So talking about remote patient monitoring, RPM, I think the COVID, the pandemic had given tailwinds in terms of changing the trends in the industry. And this is the way to go. This is how it's going to go. And I believe this is going to impact the pharma industry in 2021. Yesterday, the minister had announced about 420 e-hospitals as part of Digital India. So there's a platform that brings patients, hospitals, and doctors together. So so the remote patient monitoring will transform healthcare delivery, and it will also accelerate the adoption of remote monitoring tools. In fact, when it comes to tools and wearables, I think I recall Stanford Medicine's Apple Heart study, which I'm sure most of you must have read. 400,000 patients who participated in the Stanford's Apple study. So the Apple Watch has a certain feature wherein it can pick up irregular rhythm, heart rhythm, and sends out as a notification, and which is an indicator of silent arterial fibrillation, a very common condition in the US. So the part of the study, if there's an irregular heart rhythm was identified, the participant would get a notification on his phone. He would also on the iPhone and the watch, and they would get a telehealth consultation, and then probably move ahead and have an ECG. And the results of this particular study, which is done by Stanford, were absolutely very interesting and very revealing. 1/3 of the participants who actually received the notification, when they followed up with ECG, have found that they had atrial fibrillation. 60% of those who received notification, they went and sought medical attention. This actually reinforced, it's actually documented, reinforced, evidence-based in that, yes, wearables could potentially play a very, very important role. This innovative digital technology could play a very, very important role.
You are running out of time, so if you can.
Sure. I'll just take another 30 seconds, creating, for preventive healthcare. The second one is in terms of the data that we're sitting in, perhaps the terabytes of data that India is sitting on, we can derive insights out of this, which will help the pharma industry. And the third one that I spoke about was in terms of engagement. Using technology to create tools to engage consumers, patients, and these tools should be on pillars of empathy and compassion. So we cannot have bots speaking to patients. It can work in Uber, it can work in any other industry, but healthcare is a humanized industry, and it has to be built on pillars of compassion and empathy. So technology should address those needs. This is all I have to say.
Thanks, Srini. Samir, as a startup, what is the help that you require from this industry? You have the association out here. You have senior people as consultants out here. So if you can summarize in 2 minutes, what is it that you require from this industry ecosystem, which will help you move forward in a big way?
Certainly, I think this becomes a very interesting platform for us to seek whatever kind of help that we, the first and the foremost help that we seek from the academia is to, try and engage. We would like to engage with them, try to come up with the new, studies, etc. Plus, at the same time, we can also engage with the established group of Mr. Majumdar and this thing is, and combine and work together to try and come up either in terms of increasing the volumes of the business or in terms of coming up with the new discoveries. Mr. Komu said that there are 39 institutes of CSIR are available. But, engaging with them at the right, that is still a challenge. So when he said that it's a responsibility of the private companies to set up, so I would like to make use of this ICN platform and request that we would be, more than interested in coming forward and seeking help. And if we can get help from the Mr. Komu, to try and come up with the new ways and the means, better ways and means to manufacture the same drug, either at the, cost-effective manner, that would be of a significant help to us.
Thanks, Samir, for being very forthright and talking about how we can collaborate. And if China has moved forward because of collaboration, why can't we? And very sweet 2 minutes of your talk. I now request Avinav, if he can talk about the R&D push for novel molecules. I would request, because we have 14 questions are there. So I request if you can say in 2 minutes.
Sure. So small molecule based drug discovery in India has been has not had a lot of success, and I think what the group is already mentioned a little while ago is that companies like us can play an important translational role, wherein we know what it takes to partner with an academic outfit, help with them to translate it into a druggable product, and traverse this preclinical, pre-IND kind of a domain, and then look to partner with other pharmaceutical companies. In my experience, there have been various partnership opportunities with Indian academics. However, the Indian pharma is still a bit reluctant to get into earlier stage. In an ideal world state, I'd love for them to take more risks and participate in that zone. That's my take on it.
So just a quick rebut on why they are reluctant to take that challenge.
That's a good.
Is it because they do not have more startups like IT, telecom, and digital?
Or maybe the commercial incentives for launching a proprietary product in India is not as high in some of the other markets. And I'm just speculating. Or it could also be that barriers to entry and protect intellectual property may not be as aggressive as in some of the other jurisdictions.
I think the policymakers who are on the delegate side should look into this, that how it can be attractive so that we can focus on innovation in a big way. Thank you, sir, Avinav. Now I request Mr. Govind, if he can talk about how these government R&D institutes, academia and industry can collaborate with one another, because that is which is coming from all the speakers. And there is no standard operating procedure. So as a consultant, and within 2 minutes or 120 seconds, if you can talk about the standard operating procedure for all these, which can be followed so that everybody benefits in the long run and we all are happy at the end of the day. So over to Govind.
In fact, I think we most of us talked about India becoming pharmacy of the world. We are also saying, however, we are also saying it is only in generics. So therefore, I think we need to go something beyond generics. It doesn't need to be at the cost of something. India is a big country, so we can always do API, we can do formulation, we can also do NCs. But as we all know, NC is a game where you need a lot of patience and a lot of money. Now, current generic industry may not be able to afford that. So what I believe is we need fourfold solution over here. One is the support, financial support from the government. The second is the government institutions, whether it is DST, DBT, CSIR or ICMR, working closely with them, and accountability developed between both, between industry as well as on the government. I think that is required. I remember in 1997, I think similar exercise was done. The new schemes were made. I was part of Ranbaxy that time, and nearly 9 companies got into NC. But Ranbaxy was the only company which could finally make for India's first NC and implement that or launch it commercially. But rest of it, either they gave up in between, or they did not follow it up. In the process, no NC came out. I believe this triangle, that is industry, then academia and government institution, if they work together and with accountability, I think what is missing in the piece is accountability on all the people. It's not only government where accountability is missing, it's also the industry where accountability is missing. I think if that is worked seriously, while we can do this job, we have made it a pharmacy. India is a big one. We continue doing that, and we also focus on NC where there are good margins, there's a good profitability. That's what I think.
We have another 8 minutes, and then we will open the floor for Q&A. I would request all my delegates to please type in their questions so that for 15 minutes we will allocate. We are extending it by another 15 minutes, so we will end it up around 4:45. So, Mr. Nagaiah, everybody is talking about accountability. The crux of the matter is accountability. So, from CSIR IICT Lab Hyderabad, how do you, what we can say, help in terms of accountability so that when industry comes to you, you welcome them, you serve them, and you also try to find solutions for them? And the other part was the R&D push for novel molecules. So how it can happen through academia industry collaboration. Sir, only 2 minutes, sir.
That is the responsibility of the institutions, sir. That is our responsibility, because that is what is the accountability, whatever our speakers are, that is must. And the policymaker, the commitment of from the government side is very clear. But the coordination between the policymakers or the decision makers of the country, they should be honest and they should be accountability. They have to the interest on the country benefit, country growth, and they must be Indian interests. So for this, the manufacturers and the institutions and the academicians. So academicians and the institutes will develop in gram scale level in institutes. The manufacturer should approach from the institutes of the CSIR institutes. That is must. That is in USA. The industry is going from the universities. The industry is going from the institutes. They are generating, but final bulk quantity manufacturers are the Indian industries only. So here is the accountability is most important, and interest of the country growth is most important. Same time, business also is the most important. But government is very clear. The institute head of the family or the academic head of the family and the industry head of the family should think they are doing. But same time, how the coordination between the 3 people, and they should form an association.
Mr. Nagaiah, do you have, say, industry mela in CSIR? If you can have, say, 6 monthly, 1 mela, in a year 2 melas, I think your problem will be solved. You have 2 melas, which you call as industry mela, and where anybody, whether he's a startup, whether he's an SME, whether he's a big company, can come and talk to you, and the whole day all the faculty should focus on this particular aspect, I think the problem will be done. So are you planning to organize 2 melas in a year, 2 days in a year for the industry?
Good suggestion. Good suggestion. And but CSR are already doing the job for the pesticide, for the bulk manufacturer we are inviting, and the manufacturer is inviting. But this is not like a mela. But the institutes are inviting from the manufacturers to educate what they are doing. So here is we are doing, but we are this coordinate this that what mela is will help. So it's a very good suggestion, sir. This has to taken.
So sir, you would be becoming a director very soon for any of the CSIR IICT labs.
No,
so
sir.
wherever you go, the best wishes are with us. I would request if you can arrange at least in your institute where you become a director, this particular mela, and I think the problem of the industry will get solved, the collaboration will increase, and India will benefit in the long term.
Exactly, sir. Exactly, sir. Exactly. That is responsibility, sir. Every person responsibility. These three people are, if it is the proper coordination, India will success.
Thank you, Mr. Kini. Now I would request Mr. Raghubir. Thank you, Mr. Nagaiya. I would request Raghubir Kini. Sir, Brand India has strengthened because of COVID-19, the vaccines that we have developed. And we are seeing a lot of head of the states congratulating India for timely vaccine. So within weeks, it is not about within weeks, within days we are delivering it. So how do you see from an export point of view, it benefiting us? Over to Mr. Raghubir Kini. Mr. Kini? Mr. Kini, are you there or?
Yeah, I'm there.
Please, sir.
I could not hear anything.
I was saying the Brand India has been enhanced because of COVID-19 vaccine. And now not the delivery is not within weeks, but within days. And we have seen head of states congratulating us for timely and very fast execution of what we are doing. So how will this impact exports, sir, in days to come?
The vaccine diplomacy is definitely going to help us because there are many countries. We are exporting to more than 200 countries, 180 countries around the world. And what is happening is that whether you agree or no, there is a sustained campaign against India also working in the background. And this diplomacy is definitely going to help us to increase the exports because, see, there are some countries which were not importing, which were looking at other countries for imports, will now look at India. And India has been a major exporter of vaccines to the entire world today. And they are looking at India.
And sir, you were talking about 25 billion from 20.5 that we are talking about. So will that number increase now with the COVID-19 vaccine coming into picture?
That is a difficult question to answer right now because see, if you take the COVID vaccine pricing and all these things, it is done at a very competitive pricing. We really would not be able to comment on that, whether it's going to be, commercially, whether it is commercially taken up or no. Because many places, but we have donated the vaccines. Some places we are giving it, the pricing also is depending on the countries, what it is being exported. So at this juncture, it would be difficult, but 25 billion exports by the end of the year, I don't think it is.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Yogin Majmudar. Recently, he met Andhra Pradesh government people, and now they are looking at environment in a big way and trying to set up the CSTP for their park. So if you can throw some light on how these things will definitely help in bringing the cost down and making the industry more lucrative. So Mr. Yogin Majmudar.
Sure. Let me just start by a little bit observation on what Abhinav said about the US not depending on 28% only local and the rest are their export on imports from the other countries. Now, that other countries doesn't have happen to be mainly China. As in our case, 70% is only China, and they don't have wars with China as we have had. So we are in a little different scenario. That's why we can't just sit around and allow China to. Scenario can suddenly change. That's why everybody has woken up in the government also. That particularly with that Doklam and all those what happened. Same is going from that into the Samir's point also of the brownfield. That is of course very good to have fresh blood. It's most welcome that. But again, the same thing. We don't have the luxury of time. We have to be out of the clutches of Chinese as early as possible, and that's why brownfield for two reasons. Brownfield has the spare capacity which is being idle, that, and without any additional cost, it can be straight away put to into. And the second is the time. We can immediately get the benefit of it. Anyway, going into what we are, all this is API and China comes down to how do we reduce our cost. One of the major costs is environment and effluent treatment, rather, I would say. As all API manufacturers will know, the major problems at the moment is, apart from cost, also the lot of red tapeism, bureaucratism. They are looking at as means the industry is criminals, almost in that way. Some of the pollution control boards. So we as IDMA have been successfully fighting for years, and lately we find the Ministry of Environment has only last 2 months come on board. They also have realized that they are partners. They need not be just policemen. And one or two very good notification we have got out of them. One of the biggest one is that instead of going for consent for individual products, drugs, now onwards they will be giving API and intermediates. So all that you need is get an API and intermediates. As long as your pollution load does not increase, you can make any changes on your own without going to any of the pollution. That is a very, very big achievement. Next one we are waiting for is that, again, without changing any increasing pollution load, increase production. They have nothing to do what we do inside the plant. Whether we increase production, we increase machinery, put anything. That's also, I think, coming. We have had a discussion with Secretary Environment, and it was minuted that this will be, that is just a matter of days before they actually come. As Praveenji says, I'll briefly touch upon what we had a discussion with Andhra Industries Commissioner this morning. They are wooing APIs to come to Andhra. And they seem to be right now in the forefront of all, because we have dealt with Gujarat, we have dealt with Maharashtra governments for this, and of course the center. And what is the main which we feel now? There needs to be a real, one has to think out of the box. Like our finance minister also said, and she has put it, and that is consider API manufacturers as a separate industry, effluent treatment as a separate industry. Both are separate expertise is needed. Synthetic organic chemistry is one, effluent treatment is separate. Already CETP is common effluent treatment plants are there. So they need to segregate two as two separate industries. Manufacturers are just supposed to manufacture and let the CETPs take over and do the treatment and open it up. That's what we have been telling. We told them, and they are also taken it very sportingly, that why only government and why only the associations of industries, the local association set up the CETPs. Open it up to private, give funding to them and let them compete. You will get a price also the lowest, cheapest, and where is the best treatment, and let them decide what the industries will manufacture, how much they can take from them. No more direct control from the pollution control boards. Whatever is the capacity of norms of the CETP, that will decide what effluent industry can discharge to them.
Thank you, sir. We have now, let me open it up for Q&A.
Can I just answer two Q&A straight away since I'm talking?
Yeah, you
I happen to see.
Let me read the question first, and the two questions, which is the bulk drug promotion scheme by Sahil Gupta and PLI scheme interrelated. The bulk drug scheme, the common infrastructure facilities will be formed, but the scheme is only valid till 2024-25. I find it hard to understand that how the state government will be able
No,
to.
the two are separate. PLI and the bulk drug parks have nothing to do with each other. They
Okay.
happen to have been announced at the same time, but they are not interrelated. That you don't have to have to be in a bulk drug park to be part of the PLI scheme. You can be anywhere. That's why the two dates are different.
Okay.
And also, I'll answer that one question was there, whether any more have been announced. No more, only 5. I stand corrected. There are 5 who are announced for the these fermentation products.
Okay.
The remaining not yet, no. And also the bulk drug parts, no, nothing has been yet finalized. 3 are to come. Andhra Pradesh is in the running. Gujarat is in the running. 2-3 other states are also in the running. Only we feel that those with coastal borders will get preference, because after all, the effluent cannot be discharged in the inland area.
Thank you, sir. There is a question from Rishi Kapoor. What's your view on China Plus One advantage coming to India? Till now, the advantage had not flown into India to the extent it was expected. Your view for next 5 years? I would request Mr. Govind K. Jaju if he can throw light on this.
Praveen,
Yes, sir.
you said China Plus.
Yeah. China Plus One advantage coming to India. And the advantage had not flowed into India to the extent it was expected. Your view for next 5 years?
Yeah, to me, I think the regulatory process of adding a new supplier takes time. Whether it is India or whether it is some of those developed countries, in some cases, the time taken is nearly 1.5 years to add one more source. So the people who already have 2 sources, one from China and one from India, can start switching over to India and start. But anybody who is having only source as China, and if they have to add a source from India, they will need time. And only after that is approved, you can start using the material. Therefore, there will be a lead and lag. But I believe in next 5 years, definitely there is going to be, or rather most of the people are going to have at least China Plus One source onto their list of vendors.
There is a question from Mr. A. Devdar. He's talking about export incentives. And I would request Mr. Raghubir Kini if he can talk about the new RODTAP and about MEIS in brief, sir. Sir, you have to unmute yourself, Mr. Kini.
Export incentives in the sense, RODTAP is a scheme whereby the actual duties suffered by you will be reimbursed. Reimbursed in the sense it will be rates will be fixed by way of a percentage, and you have to provide data to the government as an industry. As a pharmaceutical manufacturer, you have to provide the data. What is your electricity duty? What is the duty suffered in export? What are the like you have to transport your goods from the port to the factory? What is the diesel cess? All those things you have to comply and give it to the government. That is going to come, because as I already told you, MEIS is not going to remain for a long time. It is already gone because the WTO has come hard on it. Second thing is that other incentives are, as I told you, any manufacturer has to register its products, and whatever fees paid for registration will be reimbursed by the government of India under the MEIS scheme. That is a much better scheme.
There is another question, sir. Further, would like to understand the meaning of domestic value addition in the PLI scheme, because you were the person who designed the PLI scheme. So if you can talk about what is the meaning of domestic value addition in the PLI scheme from Sahil Gupta.
I am not aware of the domestic part.
I think I can answer that.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So Mr.
It's very simple. It's a 70% value addition for synthetic organic chemicals and 90% for the fermentation products. Now, if X is the import content, when you are selling X at Y, the difference between Y minus X should be 70%. Simple as that. So you have to bring in 70%. The import, I would put it the other way around, import content should not be more than 30% of their selling price. In case of synthetic organic chemicals, and in case of fermentation, not more than 10%. the import content. Simple as that. Nothing in it.
Yoginji, there is one more question from Sahil Gupta. It talks about, has the government finalized any manufacturer for the chemical synthesis and other chemical synthesis target segments?
And that's why I answered already.
Okay.
We have not finalized yet.
Already, this is the only one that is where 5 molecules or 5 atoms have been cleared. No other.
Srini, if you can answer this, what is the scope of biotechnology with nanotechnology and how exports work in pharmacy and chemical industry?
Can you just repeat the question, Praveen?
What is the scope of biotechnology with nanotechnology and how exports work in pharmacy and chemical industry?
Oh, yeah. So in terms of biotechnology, I think there's one very strong evolving therapy line that is being building is in terms of biologics. So, and India is kind of, along with China, I think that's one area where both the economies, both the countries are kind of investing to identify, to build biosimilars. I think biosimilar and similar biologics. Although if you look at currently in India, we have explored. I think whatever the revenue that Suresh mentioned at the beginning of this discussion, about $7 or $8 billion, has been only with very simple biologics and predominantly in the area of diabetes. But if you look at the kind of opportunity that has been laid out by ABLE and the biotech industry, they're getting into newer areas of monoclonal antibodies and in oncology. I think there's a huge opportunity in this area for India for similar biologics.
Thank you, Srini. There is an anonymous attendee who has, the question is, initially there were 453 API KSM in the scheme, but it got updated and now they have around 43 drugs, which our speakers have spoken before. There are many KSMs which are still not included in the scheme. For example, India is the largest manufacturer of natural menthol, but India started importing synthetic menthol in huge quantities, which is just 5 to 8% cheaper than natural menthol and is used as a KSM for many drugs. Why is it like that, these types of KSMs not included in the scheme?
I think I answered that in my talk already.
Yes.
That 41 is just the tip of the iceberg. It should have been 400, 4,000.
Yes, yes.
So this is 6,940 crores government has sanctioned for this. And they're coming out with 10,000 more. Now that's where the rest of the molecules will come. There are not going to be any list coming out. It will be open for everything.
Sir, Mr. Sangram Pawar talks about which API market should MSMEs focus on. And he is listed fusion proteins, microbial expression systems, cytokines, those required for antibodies, therapeutic enzymes. Any direction on analyzing which API application has potential demand? Mr. Yogin Majmudar?
No, I think very difficult for me to.
Anybody would like to answer?
So it will be very difficult for anybody to answer.
Correct.
Okay, okay. Siddharth Gupta is talking about how can we become Atmanirbhar if we have no support from the government to keep Chinese products at bay, or is it a vicious circle that will keep us as promoters hanging by the needle? Govind, if you can answer this. I think there is a lot of handholding which is happening from the government side. That is what I can say. Please wait and watch. And the PLI scheme, the other schemes that the RoadTep scheme that we are talking about, even for the registration, which Mr. Raghubir Kinni talked about. So there are many schemes. I think this government is helping us in a big way. If there is any further addition to what I have said, please budge in, Mr. Govind.
No, I completely agree with you. I don't think that government is not hand-holding. The ways could be different. You might expect hand-holding in a particular way, and government would like to do it in a different way. Obviously, government cannot stop imports. They definitely cannot, but they can definitely support local people to be competitive and to move out. So I see that they are definitely doing it.
Mr. Yogin, if you can talk about which APIs or API intermediates can be manufactured in India?
Well, all.
All, yeah. All.
I think that's the best answer, and also in very short.
Yeah, with the support of IICT and universities and the brains we have, I'd say that nothing is impossible for us.
Yeah.
Mr. Nagaya, your thoughts on this, sir? Because you have also written an article in ICN. So,
sir, my view is government giving everything to the manufacturers and institutes. So here the big companies must be do at least 5 to 10 APIs other than what they are doing. So that government side has to clear direction to the big companies. Then only it will make the Atmanirbhar, because they are doing their products, but along with their product, they have to do minimum 5 to 7 APIs, which are 53 APIs, which are valid needed for India. So the government side give for the big companies 5 to 10 intermediates other than what they are doing. That will help.
Thank you, Nagaya sir. Mayank Dabe talks about what you see pharma growth in 5 years down the line, looking at positive environment for India. Govindji, sir, if you can talk about 5 years down the line, how would be pharma growth in?
I believe, assuming that today we are at 40 billion, both export and domestic put together, I believe in 5 years we should be able to hit around 75.
Mm-hmm. And there is another question from Dharani Kumar. It talks about 3,000 crore investment for which year? Even Yogin talked about 3,600 odd crores. So this will happen in FY, which year he's talking about, sir?
I think these plants take time to manufacture, time to get built up. They are huge plants. Assuming they start today, probably plant building itself will take 1 or 2 years. And therefore, this investment should be 21 to 23. Expecting 23, they should get into production.
And Mandar Paranjape is talking about what is the percentage growth expected by panelists in India pharma industry from 2020 to 21 and from 2021 to 22. And how much of it will be driven by price and how much by new products?
Oh.
You need to engage with Mr. Govind K. Jaju as a customized report, and he will definitely help you. But if you can give a short answer to it, sir.
I think the growth for 21-22 or year is going to be definitely much more than the average growth what pharma industry has seen. And thereafter, it is going to be more. So if you want in terms of figures, depending upon which segment you're talking, whether you're talking about only domestic, only export, total, blah, 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 will be different. But I can tell you, if we go back 10 years, the growth of coming year is going to be much more than any of the years we have seen.
One question was from Murli Duvri. Would an industry-led consortium approach work towards NEC's work? Who would like to take this? Given the resources needed.
Yeah, I can take a stab at that, Praveen. I believe that NCEs require drug discovery is one of the most complex endeavors that one would embark upon. And I believe that there is an alignment of interest that's needed. So if, in short, if the private companies can align their commercial interests, then yeah, sure. Otherwise, there is always this ecosystem way of doing it, which involves academic and industry collaborations, patient advocacy groups. There are a lot of other factors also in it.
Vaishali Tavde talks about there is a push from government on ingredients, manufacturing of pharma. How is interest on this front from industry? This has already been answered. Mr. A. Devdhar, very important observation from Mr. Samir regarding his China working experience, where all members of ecosystem working in a focused way in tandem. This is key. Anything to be added, Mr. Samir Raval?
I think that sums it all. I think one line sums it all.
Dr. Sudhir Savarkar talks about great discussion. Thanks. Currently, I see Indian manufacturers needs to deal with registration agent or distributors. Hence, they are quite anxious and they don't register product overseas, have price and quality advantage, and what are the efforts of Export Promotion Council. I think Mr. Raghubir Kini talked about that around 2 crores, maximum around 2 crores, you can get those benefits. I think all these exporters need to avail this. Raghubir ji, sir, if you can add.
I think he's talking about getting out of the distributed channels. Right now, to register the product, you need to contact a distributor or a local agent to register your products and to sell his products. That's what I feel. But that's not possible because you need to have somebody responsible, because health products like medicines are not this thing that is consumed by the person. So you need somebody responsible for answering any doubts, any questions, any quality issues, anything, one has to be responsible there. So distributor is needed. I don't think that is the question. I'm not.
Raghuvirji, thank you for answering the questions. Let me thank all our speakers for taking time out from the busy schedule to make their felt for this event. And and the best thing is that we have answered all the questions which were there in the chat window as well as in the Q&A window. So a big thanks from Indian Chemical News to all our speakers, Mr. Yogin Majmudar, CMD Bakul Group, Mr. Raghuvir Kini, former ED Pharmaxil, Dr. Komu Nagaya, Chief Scientist and Head CSIR IICT Hyderabad, Mr. Narayanan Suresh, Chief Operating Officer ABLE, Mr. Govind K. Jaju, Partner Singora Consulting, Mr. Avinav Dandia, CEO Spira Pharma, Mr. Samir Raval, Founder Director, Magnizent Pharma Chem, Mr. Srini Konduru, VP Consulting and Business. Let me also thank all delegates who registered and also participated in this event. We see that around 70 people are still there. We had around 150 odd people who had participated and around 300 registrations that we had. Let me thank all Team ICN people who made this event who stitched this event and made it a success. I would request all delegates to give their feedback for the event on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest, on the chat, on the Q&A window, so that we are aware, or if you can also give a feedback on what things needs to be improved, so that we can work on it and come out with a better program whenever we do next time. So please, delegates, please give your feedback. That is an earnest request from all of us from ICN. If you can give your feedback with respect to this seminar, would request you to register for the next set of events. India's Petrochemical Outlook, which is on 19th of February, and Digital Lessons from 2020, preparing for the new normal on 10th of March. So let me thank you all speakers, delegates who made this event a success. And this is Praveen Prashant signing off, to meet again on 19th February at 2:55 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Thank you.
Thank you, Praveen. Thank you. Thank you.